Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2022-2023 NFL season wrap-up video. Man, what a year. It is hard to believe that the last game, the 284th game of the 2022-2023 NFL season, has been played. And we are now at the end of the season. I want to congratulate the Kansas City Chiefs. Try to do my best, Andy Reid, their Chiefs, for winning their second Super Bowl in the past 4 seasons, their 3rd championship overall. And what a thrilling game back and forth between the Chiefs and the Eagles. 38-35 was the final. The Eagles become the team with the most points scored in a Super Bowl loss, surpassing the Patriots, who I believe, ironically, against the Eagles when they put up 33 5 years ago. But it was an incredibly thrilling game. Jalen Hurts played the best game of his career, in my opinion. He amassed for over 370 yards of scrimmage yards, 300 in the air, 70 on the ground, with 3 rushing touchdowns, which tied Terrell Davis for the most in a Super Bowl, which is incredibly impressive, the most by a quarterback. And that means now that for the year, he has set the all-time NFL rushing touchdown record for a quarterback, regular and post, with 18 rushing touchdowns in the season, regular and post. Incredible job by them. The Eagles' defense and Chiefs' defenses were overmatched for the offenses they were playing, and it definitely showed. And thank gosh for Steve Spagnuolo, Spags, that he had Patrick Mahomes as quarterback, and unfortunately for Jonathan Gannon, the brand new Arizona Cardinals head coach, he unfortunately had the fortune of having Jalen Hurts, who just was a little bit worse than Mahomes due to the fact of the fumble. The fumble by Nick Bolton, which was the only defensive score of the game, was basically the difference in the game. Even though the Eagles were up by 10 points by the end of the first half, it could have been 17, and that might have been the difference in the game. So, what a finish. The Chiefs also became the second team, ironically, with the 2017 Eagles, that in the second half, they scored on every single possession of that second half to win the game. 3 touchdowns and a field goal. They outscored them 24-14 in the second half to win the Super Bowl. It was an all-time great game. Incredible offensive display by both quarterbacks. Every receiver and tight end, were doing phenomenal. There was that tough call from the officials on cornerback James Bradbury that you could look at and say, it was holding. So all the fans out there that were upset, that was a holding call. It was not very strong. It wasn't obvious because he still tried to get the ball. And yes, I will agree, the ball was uncatchable. So at the end of the day, I will acknowledge that. However, it was the right call to make because you just cannot pull on a guy's jersey in that spot. And it basically ended the game with Butker making a 35-yard field goal to win the game with 8 seconds left. Though I would have to say this, Eagle fans also be thankful. Harrison Butker missed about a 43-yard field goal. I was watching the game with my family, and as soon as my dad saw Butker hit that kick, that first one, he knew that it wasn't going to go in, and it doinked off the left upright. So be thankful that, it should have been a little bit higher, or maybe that field goal would have never even had to be made if Butker had done his job in the first quarter. But I digress. But that is the end of the season. And, look, there's a lot of big talk about what the future, or let me give my opinion while I'm talking about the Super Bowl, about the perception of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Okay, let me start with Andy Reid. One of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport. He is the all-time greatest Chiefs coach, bar none now. You could argue Hank Stram back in the 60s. He was the only one to won a title. But now that he's gotten them to 3 Super Bowls with 2 championships, he is the GOAT coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. But this isn't just, talking about Andy in that context. Let's talk about Andy in the overall NFL umbrella context. Okay? I believe with this victory, he has cemented himself as one of the 5 greatest coaches in the history of the sport. The other 4 that are above him, in my opinion right now, and, and if everybody that's watching this video, first of all, thank you for watching the whole season as I've done these predictions. I will get into my overall predictions here in a second. The other 4 coaches that I believe are right now better than Andy Reid are Bill Belichick, Bill Walsh, Chuck Knox, and Don Shula. Okay? Don Shula. If Andy, and he said he is coming back for another year, he's only going to be 65, and he's under contract for 3 more years, I expect him to play out the rest of his contract. At least. And he could get another extension regardless. I believe that if Andy Reid wins a 3rd championship, he will go from being in the 5 to the Mount Rushmore. That I would take him over Don Shula with 3 championships, and it would basically be the Bills and Chuck and Andy as the 4 greatest coaches to ever coach this game. He has been coaching for 24 years. He is going on his 24th season. He is getting into that Belichick area. Only Belichick has a longer tenure currently, and the only one other I think longer consecutively maybe was Tom Landry back in the 60 to 89, 29 years. Andy could very well hit that goal by the end of his career if he wanted to. I don't know if he's going to coach for another 6 to 8 years, but for another 3 to 4, I could see Andy. He's having so much fun. He has the best quarterback in the game. He has one of the best rosters. He has long-term security in a lot of places, especially at the quarterback, with Mahomes having 9 years left of his current contract right now. But I'm going to look at it and say that I think Andy Reid right now is the 5th greatest coach of all time. He has cracked that top 5 with this 2nd Super Bowl victory. A 3rd one would put him into that 4. And if he got a 4th one, I would be willing to put him over Chuck Knox. Chuck Noll. Not Chuck Knox, the great run Chuck for the Rams. Chuck Noll. If he gets a 4th one, I'd be willing to put him over Noll. I don't know if I could put him over Walsh because of the undefeated record in the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl, but that's just me. But we'll see. And then let's talk about the other big herring in the room, about Patrick LeVon Mahomes II. Patrick LeVon Mahomes II, I've heard a lot from the last few days, already being put into the top 3 all time, top 2 all time. He is the GOAT. Okay? In my opinion, Patrick LeVon Mahomes II has already been able to put himself, in my opinion, as the 6th greatest quarterback. I would put him at 6 right now personally. Okay? Which is an incredible thing for a 5-year starting career, 6 years overall, because he basically took a red shirt when Alex Smith came in 2017. Even though he did play that one game in Week 17 against the Broncos, which he won. By the way, I think he's never lost to the Broncos. He's never lost to the Broncos in his career, which is still amazing at this point, through 5 years. But he's 6. The 5 guys I would have over him, personally, is John Elway, Peyton Manning, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, and Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. Okay. And I would tell this to anybody. If you would want to say to me, hey, John Elway only won 1 MVP, he got to 5 appearances, he only has 3 fewer wins and 5 fewer losses at this point, and you want to put him 5, I could listen to that, but I value John Elway's 5 Super Bowl appearances. Yes, he got creamed in 3 of those. So, and Mahomes, Mahomes has gotten creamed too. 31-9 just 3 seasons ago. 31-9 was 3 years ago. So, that happens. But I think having those appearances kind of right now, because again, Mahomes, you don't know if he'll get back to a 4th one, or another one after that. But I think he has at least earned, in my opinion, the 6th spot right now. If he wins another championship in the next year or 2, or if he just wins another one, a couple things happen in my opinion. Number 1, that 10-year, $450 to $500 million contract, it's $500 million with incentives. That 10-year, $450 million contract is justified. because winning 3 championships on a 10-year deal is enough for me. Mahomes would have to do nothing else for the next 8 years. For the next 8 years after that, and I think it would be perfectly fine. Seriously. It would be perfectly fine if he wins another ring. Because you can't really, you can't expect more than getting 3 championships in any 10-year span, So, that's my, opinion on that. I believe right now Patrick Mahomes is the 6th greatest quarterback to ever play the game outside of, the Otto Grahams and the slinging Sammy Balls and Norm Van Brocklins and all those 50s quarterbacks. Johnny U has a point. As a Baltimorean, I will glad to say that. Johnny U in that conversation. But, to me, he's number 6. If he wins a 3rd ring, he jumps over Elway, Manning, and Bradshaw and gets to 3. If he wins a 4th, he gets to pass Montana. And then if he gets 6, then you can have the conversation about him and Brady if he doesn't lose another one. 6-1 to 7-3, you can look at the MVP, look at the amount of dominance, and say, okay, that's a conversation. But, for him and Brady, that's about a 70-kilometer, 70 lengths, of course, with the Kentucky Derby coming up soon, a 70-length difference right now, So, and again, it took 23 years for Tom Brady to make that resume. So, I don't know if, Mahomes isn't done anytime soon, but I don't think he's going to play another 17 years. So, but those are my opinions on those 2 big hot topic issues that have come up ever since the game. And let me talk about now, since I gave you all my Super Bowl thoughts and all that, let me tell you how my season went. Okay, overall. So with the game, with Super Bowl 57 in the books, I was able to end it all on a perfect note, 2-0, both against the spread and straight up. It's always good to get the game right, both against the spread and straight up terms, but that's why I loved that KC was a 1.5-point underdog, and all I needed to do was have KC win the game. And then overall for the postseason, my against the spread record, I ended up going 1 game under 500. That Jacksonville game screwed me out of getting to a 500 record, which really sucks. But you'll take you'll take it. But again, when you have a 27-point lead and you choke that away, even though they are the Los Angeles Chokers. And shout out to Affluence Picks. I remember I said in my video a few weeks ago, I don't think it would be done being called the Chokers. Well, they are still the epitome of choking massive leads. But that equals up to 46.2% against the spread. And straight up for the postseason, I finished the postseason 9-4, which equals 69.2%. So I wanted to get 10 against some tough losses. Minnesota was a 7-point game. The Jacksonville game, like I just mentioned. If I go back to the postseason, I took Buffalo to beat Cincinnati. That was tough. And, yeah, but I'll take a 9-4 record. And overall for the year, 284 games in the books this year. My final against the spread and straight up records are I am 137, 141, and 6 against the spread. And straight up, I went 177, 105, and 2. That equals out to 49.3% against the spread. And straight up now, that's 62.7. So I did not get to 500, which is very unfortunate. But, I had one of my better years, and I've gotten better at it. And my goal for the 2023 NFL season is to get to at least 500 or better in my betting picks. I've gotten better at it. I've done this against the spread picking now for about 3 or 4 years, and I was really bad in the beginning. And now I'm just getting it up 500 because I'm understanding the ebbs and flows of games. And, there was plenty of bad breaks. And I had 6 pushes. So, at the end of the day, those, don't count either positively or negatively. And straight up, it was a tough year. Definitely had some tough weeks to where I, want to try to get 10 games every single week. That's always usually the goal, getting 10 a week. I still haven't had a perfect week yet. I shout out to one of the YouTube prognosticators, Martin Wong. I believe it was this year or last year. He got a perfect week. He had been picking games over 50 years of his life, and he finally got a perfect week under his belt. Job well done to him. That is still one of the ultimate crown jewels of my prognosticating football games. Trying to get a perfect week, it's incredibly hard. And it's a little bit of a down year. Usually, if people have been watching my videos throughout the years, I usually get about 65% of the games right. This year, I got about 63. So, bit of a down year, but still, pretty good above average. I have 2 pushes that could have bump that up to about maybe 63.5%. You know, the Colts, Texans, week 1, Giants, Commanders, back in week 13, where Gano missed a 58-yarder. It definitely, you know, it was a good year, but definitely I have room to improve on, and I'm excited to get ready for the 2023 season, which is 203 days away. 203 days away from getting back to, you know, actual football, you know, or actual professional football. I know the XFL starts Saturday, and I know the USFL that Fox and NBC are doing starts in about 2 months. So yes, there will be football on TV for people out there that are, and I've watched some of it. It's not bad, but it's not that great either, because the talent they get in the XFL and the USFL are a lot of the NFL has-beens that just, you know, aren't as good. There's a reason why these professionals get into that top league. It's great for money. It's great for entertainment. Putting on the USFL and the, you know, XFL, because people are just starved of, you know, football entertainment. And, you know, basketball and hockey and baseball, and no offense to those sports, they just don't generate that kind of money on a consistent basis, especially now with Bally Sports. I know I'm kind of going everywhere, but I'll get back on track in a second. Bally Sports, which has a lot of southeastern, western, and northwest or midwest ties to a lot of local teams, they're filing for bankruptcy. And a lot of those media markets now are going to have to try to find another carrier for their brand, since, you know, their main company is going bankrupt. So, and that's the problem, is that, you know, a lot of those teams, they just don't generate the interest that professional football does. But yeah, I feel like with this season, you know, coming to an end, it's, you know, it's so interesting looking at what happened in terms of a lot of the perceptions of teams' talent, quarterback play, wide receiver play, decisions of players, the end of Tom Brady, you know, so many different things. You know, like when you look at the Bears, they go on one of their longest losing streaks in franchise history and have the number 1 overall pick. But they have a quarterback that rushes for the second most rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history, only behind Lamar Jackson. But the Bears also have $93 million in space this year, at least right now, starting forward into this offseason. And it's, you know, incredible what they're going to try to do with the number 1 pick, with a lot of free agents, with their coaching staff. They just bought Arlington Heights, so the Bears are building a new stadium. And Justin Fields, you know, might have ticked off some people in Chicago. He just said that he'd prefer to play in a dome because it's hard to play in the cold weather. Definitely maybe not the most thrilling thing to say in Chicago, with regard to that. You know, but you have that. You have the story of the Colts, you know, going with Matt Ryan. You know, this 38-year-old quarterback that won an MVP. Or that, you know, that again, that's a story that's amazing. When you look at the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. The Falcons and Seahawks this year decided to move on from their franchise quarterbacks, the best quarterbacks they've ever had, in Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan respectively, and they shipped them off to Denver, Colorado, and Indianapolis, Indiana. And by the end of the year, the teams that gave up on their quarterbacks ended up having better records and are in better positions than the current teams that they were given to in Denver and Indianapolis. Indianapolis is starting all over again with the hiring of Shane Steichen, the former Eagles offensive coordinator. And the Broncos just fired Nathaniel Hackett after a year and had to bring on Sean Payton, the former Saints coach, to an $18 million salary, or $18+ million salary. And they had to give up more draft picks. So the Broncos really don't have any high quality picks for at least the next 2 to 3 years due to the trades they made for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. You know, that's an incredible story. When you look at the Jets, when you look at the Jets season, really good defensive core, really good potential in terms of, they're the first team since 2017 to have the offensive and defensive rookie of the year in the same class when they had Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore in 2017. And then you had, this time for the Jets, you had Sauce Gardner, who a lot of people have already said is the best corner in the league right now. I still think it's Ramsey, but, again, Sauce is right up there, either 2 or 3. And he had Garrett Wilson, who was a phenomenal receiver, had to go through a lot of different quarterback play from Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Zach Wilson. And, when you look at the Jets, they had Breece Hall, a very good running back out of Iowa State, that tore his Achilles and was out for the rest of the year, but he had a lot of potential. And, you look at this Jets team, and it was amazing because, they were 7-5 at one point. And you're thinking, okay, this Jet team could make the playoffs. And then in the final 3 games of the year, the Jets couldn't even score an offensive touchdown with Mike or Zach or whoever. It's, that's just an amazing thing to where, the Jets, they are poised to take off. No pun intended. But now they need to find a quarterback. And, it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Jets this offseason. Because finding a quarterback, if it's either Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, Aaron Rodgers, any of those 4 guys, they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback to have Zach Wilson compete with. And I actually feel like that quarterback will probably take over the job wherever that is. When you look at other aspects of what is going on in the league, this year you had Buffalo, a really hot juggernaut. Who played incredibly well through the beginning, beat the tar out of the Rams right off the bat, beat the Chiefs in the regular season in Kansas City for the 2nd consecutive year. But at the end of the day, just like last year, they ended up in the divisional round, losing in a tough, embarrassing fashion. And the Bills, I think, moving forward, they're now the third place placeholder. Because after what the Bengals did with Joe Burrow and what the Chiefs have and Patrick Mahomes and that team, you would look at Burrow and Mahomes being 1 and 2 solidly in the AFC, and the Bills are just stuck with Josh Allen and a lot of talent, but you're kind of thinking, okay, they're going to be always the third, they're always going to be the Alfred. If Mahomes is Batman, Burrow is Robin, the Bills and Josh Allen are Alfred. And I really think this year, the Bills, they had the number 2 defense. They played incredibly well. Josh Allen had basically played about the same, though I think he had more turnovers, and by the end was a lot more sloppy and kind of like a long stretch of the season. But after losing in back-to-back divisional rounds, you're now starting to look at the Bills in very much the way of the stagnant team, which is the worst thing to have. Because I guarantee you, for a lot of people out there that are not Bills fans, who are great people, dedicated people, they've been through a lot in Buffalo, in a variety of fields, on the field and off the field in their community. They're stuck because they can brag about winning 12, 13, 14 games, and the Bills can win 11, 12, 13, or 14 games. But nobody this coming season, I am telling you right now, is going to care what the Buffalo Bills do until they reach the divisional round. Even beating the tar out of the wildcard team, whoever that could be, the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Steelers, they could beat the tar out of that wildcard round. Nobody's going to care. Nobody is going to care until they get to the 2nd week of January playing in the divisional round. Because if you can't win that game, you are going to seriously have to consider, is it time to move on from Sean McDermott as a head coach? Because when you're stuck and you have that talent and you can't get rid of the quarterback or any of those other assets, you have to move on from the coach and try something different. So, that was the story of the Bills. Looking at some other teams, look, Kyler and the Cardinals. That was an abject disaster, just due to bad quarterback play, DeAndre Hopkins suspension. The defense was downright dreadful. Budda Baker ended up missing the rest of the year at the end with a shoulder injury. And you look at the Cardinals and go, well, you fired Kingsbury, who you gave a 5-year extension to this past offseason. And now you have to pay him for the next 4 years while he gets to just walk around and chill. And he went to Thailand and all that fun stuff. And the Cardinals now have Jonathan Gannon, who is a good defensive coordinator. But he will probably, in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm just giving my opinion, I do not think he'll be the head coach in 2 to 3 years, because I just do not think he's that good. Out of the 5 guys that got hired, my ranking for that, and I'm going all over the place with this video, my ranking for that is Sean Payton was the best hire, D'Amico Ryans was the second best hire, though I have some genuine questions about why would anybody work for the Houston Texans, or why would any person of color, or why would any minority work for the Houston Texans, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But D'Amico Ryans would be second. Shane Steichen would be third, the Eagles' offensive coordinator. And then Frank Reich, who's the Panthers' head coach. And then Jonathan Gannon would be last. I know, and you could say Frank deserves to be second. You know, the Panthers, they had a bad year of Matt Rule. It wasn't great. You know, and Steve Wilks did an admirable job. But Steve Wilks was able to land on his feet, and now he's a defensive coordinator for the 49ers. And for Steve, that could be a great thing. Because the last two guys that were the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans, they ended up getting head coaching jobs, very quickly after that. And Steve has a defensive pedigree that I think will give him an opportunity sooner than later. Or it might be a great thing for the Niners because nobody's going to hire Steve Wilks. And if Steve Wilks does a solid job with that defense, what talent they have with Shanahan's offense, he can be the long-term defensive coordinator for the 49ers, and that might not be a horrible thing at all, in my opinion. But when you look at, the league this upcoming year, and then, there is a lot of great competition in the AFC, where you have KC, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Jacksonville. You could have the Ravens if Lamar Jackson comes back. The Ravens, of course, my team, had a pretty good start, but kind of like last year, didn't completely nosedive, but they kind of floated up a little bit to make it. And if Huntley doesn't fumble that ball, we could have beat the Bengals, and this whole thing could have been different. But, who knows? We'll never know. And now that we have Todd Monken, the former coordinator for the two-time reigning, defending, undisputed national college champions, the Georgia Bulldogs, as our offensive coordinator, it will be very interesting to see how that goes. But when you look at the, landscape of the AFC, so many good, young, talented squads, that had good years, that have good talent. Some of them have questionable coaching. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the AFC, either with the Jets or the Dolphins, or with the Jets, or the Raiders. Not the Dolphins, the Dolphins are going to stick with Tua, even though I believe that they should at least inquire about Jimmy Garoppolo, because I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo is the greatest backup the Dolphins could have in this situation. But even the Dolphins have a good squad. Like, that AFC is pretty stacked. I still think the Chiefs are in the best position because, again, they're only $3 million above the cap, and they can just move some money around from Patrick to clear up space. But when you look at that, I just genuinely feel like for the Chiefs, or for the AFC, it's incredibly stacked. In the NFC is a completely different conversation. To where, honestly, and this is not a hot take here, but I want people to really think about this. After the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they have 7 free agents themselves, and the San Francisco 49ers, who have a massive quarterback problem, with one guy who's completed 54% of his passes and only played 4 games, and the other guy that they have on their roster who played pretty well, but he just tore his ulnar collateral ligament and is going to be out at least until the beginning of training camp, if not a little extended past that, because of the fact that he's getting the surgery, Brock Purdy, on February 22nd, which is next Wednesday, which is kind of amazing to me. That's frustrating that he would wait, 4 weeks after the injury to get the surgery, because he knows how long it's going to take, and it's just going to prolong this controversy into, further ruin. Because if Purdy can't start, then, who knows. But when you look at the Niners, after that, I'm just going to say it now. In my opinion, the Detroit Lions, shout out again to Halfmoon Spicks, watch his videos as well. The Detroit Lions, you could have an argument, are the third best team in the NFC moving forward next season. Like, and you can say the Cowboys or the Vikings, but does anybody really believe in those teams? Does anybody really believe in those teams that they can make runs? With the quarterbacks they have, the roster, they have talent. And they might have some more talent compared to the Lions. But the Lions have optimism. The Lions have youth. The Lions have this thing of, nobody's really believed in us. We ended the season on an 8 out of 10 game win streak. I love the offensive coordinator. The head coach is a great motivator. Jared Goff's coming off a career year. And I would really genuinely tell people, bet on the Lions to make the playoffs. And it way too early prediction. But depending on what happens, or I'll say now, the Lions are going to win the NFC North for the first time in 30 years next year. I really believe that. They have the roster, they have the coaching, they have the experience, they have the motivation, that they can win the NFC North for the first time in 3 decades next year, and I believe they will. Just with what they have. Again, injuries can happen, all that. But that is one of my bold predictions. The Detroit Lions, for the first time in 30 years, win the NFC North. Yeah, so like that's the problem in the NFC is that like once you get past the Eagles and 49ers who have their own issues, the Eagles have their issues with Jalen's money and all that, but after that, it's really a free fall of like meh. So we're like, the Geno Hawks, the Stafford Rams, who I like, but they're, $20 million over the cap, and they have to, try to negotiate with Stafford with his $58 million option. It's not a great situation to be in if you are the NFC. So, and with all that being said, let me, get near the end of my videos. I've talked a lot about, this season. Every year at this video, I always love giving a way too early prediction for the Super Bowl. And when I do my next video, and that's the thing. Also, please put in the comments if there's any videos you'd like me to do about free agency, the draft, or anything else. Just let me know. But I always love putting in this video a way too early next year's Super Bowl prediction. I had, I believe, the Bills and Rams. That's what I said, and I stuck with it. I remember a few years ago, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, I said KC San Francisco going into the 2020 season after Brady went to Tampa. I changed San Francisco to Tampa Bay, and I was dead right from the beginning of the year before it began. And there hasn't been a Super Bowl rematch since 1992, 1993 with the Buffalo Bills and Dallas Cowboys playing each other in back-to-back Super Bowls. Well, with what I'm looking at in the AFC and the NFC, for the second time in 4 years, ladies and gentlemen, that is what I am going with for my way too early Super Bowl 58 prediction for the 2023 season. That's right, once again, just like I did 4 years ago, I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs to play the Philadelphia Eagles once again in Super Bowl 58. They will probably get to play each other in the opening night game this year, this upcoming season, because the Chiefs actually do host the Eagles, not in, coincidentally, in Kansas City due to the scheduling of the new scheduling with the extra game. So this is great. This is the extra game that was given due to the fact that they finished first place in the division from the division record from their intra-division schedule 2 years ago. That's your 17th game. The Chiefs get the home game, and so I believe that just like in the opening game, okay. Weirdly enough, the opening day game, which I believe what they're going to do, is going to be the Super Bowl once again. So once again, my way too early Super Bowl 58 prediction before the offseason officially begins, give me the Kansas City Chiefs being the home team in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium against the Philadelphia Eagles once again. So those are my thoughts on, the whole season. Overall, like, comment, rate, and subscribe. And I just want to say to everybody, thank you again. I love doing these videos every year. I always enjoy talking to people and just giving my opinions about the NFL season. I'm called the Fanatic for a reason. And I love doing this for all the people that watch. From the progs to general viewers to anybody that watches this video and appreciates my opinions I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for all the support and kind words and subscribers I've been able to build over the last several years. And once again, if anybody would like any off-season opinions or just let me know. But if that's not the case, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. And until next time, everyone, for the 2023 NFL season, September 7th. So if I do the math here, that's Thursday. September 6th, September 5th, September 4th, 2023. If nothing else changes or no ideas or new, September 4th, 2023, the Fanatic will be back for his 10th season on this channel for predictions. Everybody, look out. September 4th, 2023, I will be back. And until next time, everyone, this is Matt Fanatic signing off. So long.